Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Wolf, and this is going to be a little bit different of a video. This is just going to be me talking about my thoughts on Fellowship so far, so feel free to put me on a side monitor, or just, in the background, or whatever have you, because it has now been, 4 days of the Fellowship Open Beta, and I have put 35 hours into this game. I don't have a problem. You have a problem. I can stop whenever I want, I swear, I promise. And I also put, I think it was 30 hours, or maybe 35 hours into the Steam Next Fest demo, so that's like 60 to 70 hours worth of Fellowship so far. And yeah, I absolutely adore this game. But there are some things I kind of want to talk about that I would like to hope would get addressed. It'd be really cool if Hamish would see this and pass this along to the dev team. That'd be absolutely crazy. But I want to talk about things from the solo queue perspective, because none of my friends want to play Fellowship with me, which is a fucking shame. So I'm going to try my best to solo queue my way all the way up through the ranks, because I also think it would be really fun to do like a I solo queued to Paragon kind of thing. That would be fun. So I'm going to try that when the full release comes out, but there's some things that need to be addressed about the solo queue experience, because I don't know how people are going to be experiencing Fellowship. I don't know if it's going to be always like as a group and you need to find a 5-stack, but there's going to be a lot of people who are playing the exact same way I am. And I think Fellowship has a lot of leverage that it isn't pushing that I think it really, really could. So, as we hear all the fucking abilities go off in the background, I think the biggest thing Fellowship has going for it right now, and they need to capitalize on this before they wind up going the complete opposite way, is the casual access and the lack of toxicity. Both of those things are absolute pillar points in comparison to their direct competition, which is Mythic Plus, right? Everywhere I look, because, like, everyone that I know is telling me, like, oh, well, Fellowship's gonna die eventually, all this sort of stuff. And I've seen this happen hundreds of times with other fucking indie games and what have you, where, like, they launch, they have a great launch, they don't launch with ranked or a battle pass or something to keep people interested, then they taper off, they fall off, the next patch comes out, nobody comes back, patch after that comes out, they go free to play, nobody comes back, and then it's gone, right? So, in that sort of scenario, as a creator, I have to kind of look at, okay, where do I go from Fellowship? And if things go sideways, well, I mean, there's always Mythic Plus, but everything I see surrounding Mythic Plus about getting into it is this shit is galaxy toxic, right? For tanking players, if you don't take the right routes or streamer's route, you're going to get kicked from group, you're going to get, absolutely fucking berated. Healers, well, I mean, I know what that experience is like. I healed in WoW for the longest time. I mean, at that point, I just let you die. But Fellowship doesn't have any of that. From everything I've played, people are exceptionally nice. I've maybe ran into one guy with passive-aggressive tones, and it's probably my own fucking mirror. But generally, people are more than willing to learn. Now, I don't know if that's just because this is like day one, so everybody's learning, so there hasn't been like the toxicity developed, but I think they need to capitalize on this before they miss the chance. Now, what I mean by that is there's a couple of things that are happening throughout Fellowship that you'll see as a solo queue player when you get 30 plus-ish hours in. So, for example, if we go to our play tab here, first things first, okay, I'll talk about this in a second. If you queue, then you'll get to choose from a dungeon, right? You get 3 dungeon choices. Now, the problem, and this is something they didn't account for, I'm sure, when they put this system together, is if the entire team wants to do X dungeon, and the tank wants to do Y dungeon, the tank just leaves. I've had this happen a couple of times now, and it's entirely fair. Like, across the board, the tank is gonna be the guy who leads the entire group. He's got the fucking responsibility of, going through the dungeon. So if my guy is not comfortable doing a +7, but the entire team wants to do a 35-minute +7, I don't fucking fault the guy for leaving. Like, if he's still learning the game, and he gets thrown into a team that's like, we're gonna do a high key, then it's a kind of a yikes. And then the other thing that I see happening, and this is a repeat sort of, I don't know if it's an issue particularly, but like, every time I queue contender, it is going to be a +7. Which is weird, because there's another problem I'll get into, which is with the matchmaking. Which is that you always wind up doing +7, and when you're doing solo queue, the solo queue team is going to just pick the highest key 9 times out of 10, which, of course, obviously, but the reason being for that is that the gear scales up, right? Problem is when +7, Zithral's Ascent, is a 35-minute fucking dungeon, every single time you queue contender, you're locking in for like a 35-minute queue, or a 35-minute dungeon, which sucks from a solo queue perspective, because it's not like you can just, oh, I'm gonna go in and do like a little 5-minuter, because quick plays aren't worth it. They are, but they aren't. I'll get to that in a little bit, because there's a whole thing I think should be addressed around that. But this is what winds up being the same problem, is that you have everybody picking +7, because doing a +7 will give you blue gear. Like, you see, like, my character's decked out in all blue gear. I've done, like, 2 or 3 adepts. Most of this blue gear has come from doing a +7, which I think is great. I think the fact you can get blue gear in a +7 and then go back through all the other keys to make the gold and sell that shit and then upgrade this and then be able to actually have, like, full 8 out of 8 blue gear before you even go into adept is genuinely great for, like, replayability reasons and that sort of stuff, because, like, it gives you something to do if you can't find matches. Because this is the biggest issue, is, like, trying to find a way to play Fellowship when you cannot literally find games. Because this is going to be a running fucking problem as people get dispersed through the ranks, right? As it's going to be a twofold problem is what we've got right now. So now I can kind of talk about the second part, which is that Contender and Quick Player, well, Quick Play is pointless. Absolutely fucking pointless. And all it's doing is splitting the queues for zero fucking reason. It's creating a what's the word I'm trying to use here? Not a diversity problem, but it's creating a rich get richer problem. Let's put it that way. So what's happening is once you get into Adept and Champion, the chances you find a solo queue match are relatively slim unless you're playing during the day. That's to be expected with indie games, you know, whatever have you, right? But the problem is then you go and queue Contender, and the queue is item level based, it seems like, because I had this problem to start, which was that I could queue Contender on Rhyme and Mara and instantly get a match. But if I were to go over to my Artios, for example, who is like eye level fucking 30 right now, because I'm working on him to get him up for a guide and all this sort of stuff. He's, yeah, eye level 22. When I had 0 eye level, I would queue Contender and I would sit in a 5-minute queue. And I was like, what the fuck? Why am I sitting in a 5-minute queue? Why can't I find people? And then I'd swap over to Rhyme, click Contender, and get queued in 5 seconds. And I was like, what? And then I would queue Quick Play on Artios, and I'd get a match in like under a minute. But then here's the problem. The quick play match is pointless. The 4 quartermaster tokens and 2 cash keys is literally useless 99% of the time. Because, yeah, okay, sure, you can chain a bunch of quick plays and then buy the gear off the vendor, sure. But the problem with quick play is it doesn't put you in, like, quick play difficulty 99% of the time. It puts you in a Contender 1 or a Contender 2. And then you don't get the gear that you would have gotten for the Contender 1 and the Contender 2. You get the Quartermaster tokens. So it feels like I'm being punished for your fucking matchmaking not working correctly. It feels like I'm literally being punished out of getting the gear that I would have gotten from doing the Contender queue, from doing the Contender dungeon, because you will not put these matches, like, together. So what I suggest you do is you get rid of quick play, and you lean into the casual side, like I said at the start. And what I mean by that is you take the timer entirely out of Contender. There is no timer whatsoever until you hit Adept. Okay? Because then people aren't going to be locking in for a 35-minute dungeon fucking perpetually. I mean, well, they probably still will be because of the because of the gear upgrades. But then this means you have everyone in the same queue, rather than splitting the queue between quick play and challenge, or quick play and contender. So then now, when you're queuing this, you don't have the stress of the timer. You have everyone in the same queue, so then you can find matches easier. And then it solves your eye level problem. Because, like I said, since I have higher eye level on Rhyme, the teams I'm finding are only giving me +5 to +7. I could not do a +2 and a +3 on Rhyme if I wanted to just have an easy night they don't show up. They don't matchmake me for those teams. So then we wind up with the next problem. Like I said, is before, the tank will leave if you're not picking the tank dungeon, right? Or the tank's dungeon, right? Which, fair, valid, understandable, get that. But the next issue is that if you go into a dungeon and things stop going your way, some people just leave. And then the thing is, if someone leaves, the key's bricked. End of story. If the healer leaves, key's bricked. One DPS leaves, I mean, I've pulled off a 3-man key before. Tank leaves, you're fucked. And this is the thing, is you can get all the way to the final boss, tank disconnects. It's over. It's over. The thing is, sometimes they don't even leave. Sometimes it's just the server's a piece of shit, and you get fucking disconnected, right? So, I don't think there is anyone in the entirety of Fellowship who would be mad at adding a raw pause, a Dota-style pause, that you can hit escape and then click pause dungeon, because I also had this problem happen, where one of my teammates had to take a shit in the middle of a Cithral's Ascent. We didn't have time to pause for homeboy to go to the can, so he had to fucking dart and pinch it and come back in 3 minutes. He's like, I'll have to go back later, but it's fine, we can finish the key. And I was like, brother, that's some dedication, respect. But I don't think anyone will argue with having the ability to just raw pause the key for like 2-3 minutes, as long as we all vote for it. Literally Dota style pause, where, you know, you vote, pause, however long pause, we go back in. Everyone votes to go back in, right? And then from there, you'd be able to leave if you wanted to, because the next thing I don't think people are going to argue with whatsoever, and it's just leaning towards the casual side, is to combine that pause with the ability to then find someone to fill the slot. Now, nobody in their right fucking mind is going to complain about somebody getting a free piece of gear because they came in halfway into a key, or 3/4 of the way into a key, because what gives also gives to you. Because since this system exists, if this system exists, you're also going to be the recipient of quick matching into someone who has had a DPS leave, had a tank leave, had a healer leave, and then all of a sudden it's, oh, I only have to do 20% left of the key? Cool. Now I get free gear. Great. And the nice thing is the gear still drops even if you brick the key. So even if you join in someone's key and they have toasted it completely. Because that's that's an entire option as well. It's like if you go to Adept with the ideas I'm putting forward, and then you've got a timer, and you join it, and the guy's left, and the key is bricked, and you're looking at it as a new tank, and you're just like, I can't fix this. This is cooked. At least you'll still get gear. But, I mean, that's maybe one of the few spots where toxicity can arise, but at that point, you can just kind of throw your hands up and be like, look, I joined because you didn't have a fucking tank. I'm here to finish the dungeon. Just shut up and take the gear. And everyone just, you know, throws the towel in. That's that. Because I've bricked a couple of keys. It's whatever. I don't care, right? You still get gear at the end. So, generally, it's fine, because then you can still use that to progress forward. But this is what I mean, is that I don't think anyone would be mad about if a DPS or a tank leaves, a full pause is like either enforced or choosable. Like I said, Dota style full pause, and then you can go back into matchmaking to find either a tank, DPS, or healer, just fill whoever left, and then that guy gets easier gear and easier score because he joined and filled. Because like I said, swings and roundabouts, it'll come back to help you too. Because so long as you keep solo queuing, you'll then end up eventually joining someone's half-done key or half-done dungeon and get free gear, free rewards yourself. Everybody will like that. And this is what I mean, is by doing that, it does open up things to like, oh, it's participation awards and all this fucking sort of shit, right? But this is what I'm saying of leaning into the casual side of Fellowship, as opposed to the ultra hardcore of World of Warcraft. Because that's the advantage you've got right now. The biggest advantage the Fellowship has is I'm not going to say you can't, but it's very, very hard to tilt off of it. And what I mean by that is, like, the reason most indie games like this will die is that people will come in, do 1 or 2 dungeons or whatever have you, have a bad experience, and then put the fucking game down, right? Or in an indie competitive game, for example, they'll come in, get absolutely turbo smashed, they'll quit, and then all of the people who have stayed and learned will now have such an advantage they will gatekeep any new players out and just perpetually fuck them into the floor. That's another thing that has to go, by the way. This inactivity warning has got to go. You go for a 5-minute break, you go for a piss, you go for a smoke, you go for food, you're gone. And with the 4,000 man queue that we had going on for a little minute there, that shit's gotta get fucking upped, bro. Either up it or remove it, because that inactivity timer, way too quick. Way too quick. Fix that shit. Okay, what was I saying? Oh yeah, fuck. No, I lost my train of thought because of the inactivity timer. Damn it. Hang on, give me a second. The positivity angle, that's what it was. Right. So yeah, that is by far the biggest thing the Fellowship has going for it, is that if you pop in and you do some low keys, then you're generally not gonna have a bad time. There's a chance that you can go in and wind up with shitty people and whatever have you, sure. And that's the anomaly that's gonna happen, is you go in, someone's toxic, you get pissed off, you leave. That'll happen eventually. You can't stop that. But so long as you go and queue maybe like 2 or 3 keys, one of those 3 keys in Fellowship is gonna be a good experience that gives you the baseline of the gameplay experience. And that is more than good enough to hook people, because you can't fix a bad game, but you can fix like bad systems, right? And Fellowship is not a bad game, but it does have some systems that need some work. So with that, we can work on them very slowly, or even just over time or what have you, and eventually refine this into something that is absolutely spectacular. And the core gameplay is by far good enough to carry it until it gets to the point where everything's sort of working in a way that just feels exceptionally functional. The overall gameplay is absolutely spectacular. When you manage to get a build going where you're just chunking shit, doing crazy DPS, the tanks doing big pulls, healers keeping everyone alive, it's just, when it flows, it is one of my favorite games of all time. It is an absolute Guild Wars 1 successor, and it's amazing. But that being said, like I said, there's a couple of things that could use some refinement. However, God, this game is fucking fun. I am going to put an unholy amount of hours into this game when it fully releases, and we shall see how things progress. I want to stick with it basically till like end of service, just about, if I can, which I hope is arguably never. If we're lucky enough and we all do this correctly, then that literally could be never, and this could be the start of like a literal genre, which would be crazy. That would be awesome. I'd love that. But yeah, that is going to take a lot of work from everyone, on both creator side, player side, and developer side, all working together to make something absolutely spectacular. And I think Fellowship definitely has the bones of something absolutely spectacular. My guy just died in the lobby. Love that. But I think we just need a few more refinements, and then we can be where we really want to be. One final thing I want to end off with is let anybody re-queue after you do a dungeon. Because the one thing that you really have going for you, and this is really nice, is after you do a contender or an adept or whatever fucking dungeon you wind up in, when you leave, you're still in the team. If you do a quick play, you're tossed out of the team, which is why, like I said, quick play does not matter. It's even worse because you get quartermaster tokens from doing fucking contender. If you do contender +7, you get 8 quartermaster tokens and 4 cash keys. So like, there's no point in ever queuing this, and then you just wind up with the problem of like people stuck queuing quick play because they can't get low contender games, because now people queuing contender are only getting +5 to +7, means that those people in 0 to 4 are not going to get added to the +5 to 7 team because they don't have the eye level, and it fucking creates the same problem. But the biggest thing that I think needs to happen is when you get that team together, try and get them to do 2 or 3 or 4 keys together. Then you wind up with a scenario where everyone's having a good time. And that's what you want to have keep happening. Because if everyone has a good time with a random pug team, you've created a miracle compared to your competition. And this happens reliably, genuinely. I don't know if it's just me being able to do it and saying, you know, you guys want to re-queue, you guys want to re-queue, you guys want to re-queue. But Fellowship is the type of game where you do a contender +7, then you ask the team, you know, you want to go into Adept, you want to push 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. And most of the time, sure, right? Then you get a couple of other dungeons in with the same team, you get a couple other pieces of gear, add a couple of people to friends list, what have you. When this game fully comes out, I'm going to be friends listing pretty much everyone that I come into who's a decent DPS or a decent, like, tank or healer. Because with the friends list, I probably still have like 2-3 people on right now. Exactly. So I would just start pulling from here and just start inviting people, even though you can't separate this. A notes little panel would be nice to be able to be like, he's a tank main, he's a DPS main. But like that's one of the things I'm going to also be doing is just friending absolutely everyone, so then I can start pulling together teams out of literal air, and then going in and doing Adept that way. That's how I think it's going to wind up happening. But I've had people friend me because I fucking pumped too hard, right? So you have the positivity loop basically already starting, but the problem that winds up happening is the party leader, which is an absolute carryover from World of Warcraft. But what this winds up doing is literally only the party leader can queue, and only the party leader can start the dungeon as well. Also, get rid of the fucking ready up on this, by the way. Just make it so when you click the thing, that's your vote, it's cast, whatever. The amount of times I forgot to press ready up after clicking the, like, dungeon thing is way too high. Absolutely way too high. But because of the party leader system, if, like, the one DPS who's being a brat is the fucking randomized party leader in your contender or adept queue, and you guys want to re-queue, you can't kick anybody from the group, which is a good thing. Absolutely keep that. But you can't re-queue either, because if Timmy doesn't want to hit fucking play, you're not getting another match, even if the thing was doing well. So my suggestion is allow anybody in the team to re-queue. And then if everything goes sideways, they just deny the queue, say they're not ready, you know, everyone gets their fucking gear on and you queue again. But just make it so that anyone can start the queue, and anyone can start the dungeon when you're actually in the dungeon as well. And I think that's pretty much my thoughts. I think that's pretty much everything that I've run into as like a solo queue player. The actual gameplay of Fellowship is absolutely spectacular. I know it was just like 22 minutes of like arguably complaints, but I assure you I am having the time of my fucking life with this game. And I just want it to be so goddamn good that the full release just pops off and I can play this game for an obscene amount of fucking time. I mean, I'm gonna do that anyways, but even still, I want to be able to enjoy it to its absolute fullest. So yeah, those are my suggestions. Fucking get rid of quick play. This shit sucks. Make it so the people doing quick play are just doing contender 0 to 4. And then you'll have the queue problem arguably solved because this is just useless across the board. Remove the timer from contender, except for like maybe +7. Start the timer in adept, so then you'll have people just casually queuing here. Make some incentive to go back, which I know there's like a mercenary system that's not in the game yet, where once you reach a higher difficulty, you can go back and like get stuff. So that's supposed to be in on full release, but you're definitely going to need something like that to then not create this problem where like people in Paragon are never going to wind up here. Or alternatively, okay, final thing I'll say before I sign this off is if you want to keep quick play, make quick play search for like any key you can do. Out of everything you have unlocked, make quick play search for literally any open team that has like your slot unfilled based on whatever difficulties you have unlocked. Like literally if you have contender, adept, champion, and paragon unlocked and you queue quick play, make it able to give me a champion 3 or an adept 6 or a contender 2 or a paragon 4. If my character is 200 fucking eye level, make it so you can literally quick play me into any difficulty, and we'll fix this little queue problem of ours very, very, very quickly. Because then these players will wind up in these dungeons with hopefully either gear that is scaled to them, or maybe they get a gold reward or something. You put something here to make it worthwhile for them to queue quick play, as opposed to any of these, which quartermaster tokens is not that. It would have to be gold so they could upgrade their gear. So then they get their Paragon gear, they get the gold required via quick play to then upgrade the Paragon gear, and then you have the loop basically fully fulfilled of push all the way to Paragon, get the Paragon gear, okay, I need to upgrade the Paragon gear, quick play for gold, quick play puts you back through any of these, you can now use your gear to feel ultra powerful and carry other people, which then pushes them forwards, which then means that your Paragon player can also wind up in a 0 to 4, and the great part is it's not really smurfing in a scenario like this, because it's actually being helpful for the guy in full Paragon to literally carry the 0 to 4 contender. Right? That guy has a great experience. The 0 to 4 guy, getting absolutely turbo carried for 1 dungeon, maybe 2 dungeons, is having a great time with your game. Right? It's not like League of Legends where, oh my god, there's a smurf in my game, he's gonna kick my ass. Oh my god, this guy knows routes, he knows everything to pull, what to kick, he's crowd controlling shit, he's healing himself so much, I don't need to do anything, this is great, we love this. Then the DPS leaves, you fill the DPS spot because you raw paused, and then the DPS gets carried because of the Paragon player, and gets his fucking free piece of gear because he filled the dungeon slot. And everybody walks away happy. That's where I think Fellowship can absolutely corner the market by looking at World of Warcraft and saying, we are going to be your polar fucking opposite. That's my thoughts. Let me know if I'm an absolute retard in the comments below. Which, I mean, I am, but, you know, that's just how it goes. Let me know if there's any other things that you think should be added to Fellowship, or if there's any experiences that you've had that go counterintuitive to mine, or anything else that you think really needs to be worked on urgently. Obviously, servers and all that sort of shit, but that's back-end stuff that I can't really comment on, because I can't fix that. So, yeah. That's just my thoughts after arguably, let's call it 60 hours, I think. That'll make a good thumbnail. Yeah, I love this game. Gonna play the absolute ever-loving shit out of it on full release to an unhealthy degree, and it will be absolutely worth every minute. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you. Take care, boys.